Content for Devs. The world beyond programming.
Welcome in the next episode of Content for Devs podcast. Today I'm alone. Federico unfortunately is not here, but we are amazing guest instead, which is the Collin Jilbert. Did I pronounce it correctly?
That's great.
So from GoRails and, I forgot, Ruby Radar newsletter. Sorry.
No problem.
Collin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you did a great job there. I'm Collin Jilbert. I run the Ruby Radar newsletter along with Andrew Mason, and I work at GoRails with Chris Oliver. Let's see, at the moment, I think that's the only notable things I'm really doing. Yeah, I'm entering now my third year professional programming experience. In total, I think I've been programming for about 4.5 years, maybe 4, probably more likely. So yeah, I'm still quite early on in the journey, but I'm glad I ended up in the Ruby and Rails communities. So yeah, I'm just riding the wave of enjoyment there.
You say that you program for 10 years. What was your first technology, tech stack that you used before jumping into the Ruby world?
It was Ruby. Ruby was the first programming language I ever touched. And but that's before even like HTML and CSS. I hadn't even touched that. The bootcamp I went to, they started us with Ruby itself. And then what did we do after that? I think from Ruby we learned, or SQL. We won't get into the debate of how you pronounce that right here, but we learned that next. And then we went into Sinatra. And then after Sinatra, we learned Rails. And then it was JavaScript and then React.
Awesome. Quite intense for a few years career, right?
Yeah, and that was a 10-month program. So those things were all within a 10-month time period.
Amazing. And now you are here in the show because you are engaged into the Ruby Radar newsletter and the screencasting activities on GoRails, which I'm super fan of. And I was wondering, I reached out to you after I got to know how long you are a Ruby developer, because just from the content publications and the amount of stuff that is related to you in the Ruby ecosystem, one can have a feeling that you are a way more experienced developer. And this is something really surprising. And I was impressed and just wanted to reach out to you and figure out your motives, your motivation, why and how did you start with content publications so early in your career? Most developers, most people are afraid of sharing even simple blog articles because of the imposter syndrome. They just don't feel they have enough knowledge to teach anybody. And you just jumped very quickly with so much different content publications. And I just wanted to have some insights into your head, into your backgrounds, what motivated you and why did you start with this?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words, and you're right. Like, I think a lot of people are shocked that I have only been programming for a short amount of time. Excuse me. But yeah, I go through those feelings still where I'm like scared to publish things. I do it anyways to help slowly get over that as much as possible. I don't think it's ever going to completely go away, especially like the imposter syndrome stuff. Always going to be there. I think it kind of just ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's stronger than other times. But let's see, starting with the newsletter. So Andrew Mason was and is still my mentor. Him and I started working together right about the end of the boot camp program that I was going through. And the way that all started is he put out a tweet on Twitter and he was just like, if any juniors would like to pair on an issue or anything that they have going on, I'm happy to do it. I think I was like maybe one of 3 people that actually responded to him on that tweet. And then I was the only one to actually like schedule something and make it happen. So, excuse me. So yeah, so that was the first time we ever worked together. And then we just worked together on various things for a few months. From there, we did a lot of Bridgetown stuff together. And then from there, he was like, I've had this idea for a newsletter. I've always wanted to do it. Would you be interested in doing it with me? So I was like, yeah, absolutely. And again, like I said yes, kind of just out of facing that fear, because I was definitely like, oh man, I don't know if I can do that. But I was like, no, like I want to contribute more to the community because it's been great to me. You know, for example, Andrew right there, like putting out that tweet, asking if anybody would want to pair. So I'm trying to pay it forward. That's part of the big reason why I put out a bunch of things. So yeah, so we did the newsletter for a while. We did the newsletter for a while, and then still do that now. I mean, we're coming up on 100 issues here soon. I think the last one we put out Sunday was 87. It was either 86 or 87. So we're coming up soon on 100, which is crazy to think about.
The consistency is amazing. I remember that you forgot to send the second issue or something, like one of the very first issues was titled even like the one that you forgot to send or something like that.
Yeah.
But after that, it's like week after the week, like it's amazing.
Yeah, I don't think we've been a week except for like that, and like that was, I think, something just we were still figuring it out, and we just forgot to schedule the issue to go out. So aside from that, we've managed to be consistent and get them out every week. Yeah, so super impressive there. But yeah, so we're still going on that. And then as far as the GoRails screencasts, that was something when I joined with Chris, he offered up to me as like I could put out videos if I wanted to, but it wasn't like a requirement for the job. But I like education stuff, and I like sharing knowledge with people and helping people grow their knowledge. I don't know everything. Now, again, it might seem like that from some of the stuff that I put out, that like, wow, in a short amount of time, he's learned a lot, you know, because like we were saying a minute ago, I've only been 4 years programming. But it's, you know, like, it's things I picked up here and there just going along. You know, it's not like there was some straight line path to like that rocket ship me forward, you know, seemingly longer than I've been actually programming. So yeah, those things I just, you know, I put them out because I want to help people. You know, if I can learn to do it and like achieve the goals that I had, I want anyone else to be able to do the same, because everyone should be able to have the opportunity to do what they want to do, you know? And that's why I often try to encourage people too that are having like trouble finding jobs. Don't give up, just stick with it. Like it will work out. Because I see a lot of people are like, well, I think maybe I should go look at JavaScript opportunities or something, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, there might be more job postings out there, but there's going to be a lot more people trying to apply for those jobs. And also, like, are you going to be happy doing that? Probably not. If you're wanting to do like a Ruby or a Rails job, now you're settling for another job. To me, it seems like you're setting yourself up for a bad time, because you're going to be not satisfied in your work. And I think really what we all want is to be happy at our jobs, you know, so we're not miserable. So like, why, you know, I get for certain people, circumstances are different, and, you know, there's bills and other things that have to get paid. But if you can put it off, I think it'll work out in your favor if you stay positive about it. But anyways, I'm running on a tangent there. That's why I do what I do, though. I want to contribute and help people grow and get where they want to.
Thanks very much. I totally agree with this path, with this thinking about the career, choosing the career path, and especially the fact that I'm working at the moment as a Hanami developer, and this is like Ruby is a niche in the web ecosystem, Rails is a niche in the Ruby ecosystem, and I mean, it's even bigger niche, like 1% of projects or even less. And still I had no big problem with finding a job here. And
wow.
It's different. It's different if you're a senior developer. I totally agree with that. It's completely different when you are starting with the career. But at the end of the day, the most important part in my understanding is to keep up and do not give up, because like in few years from now, you will be a mid or senior, and your demand on the market will be completely different. That there is way less competition, way less advanced developers in any technology or ecosystem. And once you are advanced in any particular language or tech stack, way easier to switch, to even change a career completely. remember that recently Peter Solnitsa, which is a very known Ruby developer, just switched to Elixir. And it was not like super hard for him at the level of skills he has. And also because he was already a senior, and the company that wanted to employ him supported his education and kind of shift to learn Elixir. And this is how things look when you are going further in the development career. So totally agree that the best is to choose what you love to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'll just have a happier time, happier life, I think, at least a work life.
And for maybe let's start, because I want to ask you a few things about the newsletter for sure, but also about the process of making videos. We released recently a screencasting tips episode when we covered a few different approaches to produce videos for developers. And I was wondering, what is your take on this? You seem to produce videos live without cuts or edit, but it's not always obvious. Sometimes there are some edits on the way, but just they are not super visible or not noticeable and during the actual watching of the screencast. And the whole part of preparation is never ever visible. Mm-hmm. So I would love to get to know a little bit of the total time that takes you to produce video, make research, and maybe share some insights about the process you are doing in GoRails.
Sure. The first thing I would say is, as far as how long it takes me to record a video, it kind of just depends on what the topic is. For example, the video I put out last week and the one that's going out here later on today in like 45 minutes, that originally it was just going to be one video. But when I got to the end of it, it turns out that video was 45 minutes long. So I was like, well, that's a little bit long. So it actually worked out nice that I can just split it in half and kind of release it in a two kind of series, because it really kind of more is two different ideas that have come together in a bigger way to implement a feature thing. So it depends, but that video probably took me a little over half a day to record and edit. Typically what I'll do, so you were saying it doesn't seem like there's like prep ahead of time because it looks a lot like I'm doing it live. Typically, I will go through and build the project that's going to be in the video from scratch ahead of time. And then I try to like get it completely off my computer and out of my way. And then I do try to recreate it like live without referencing back to it. And I try to do small chunks of recordings. I try to go like maybe 30 seconds to a minute in length and then stop and then kind of like reset and then do the next piece. Sometimes though, I'm in like a really good like flow state. So I'll go for a few minutes, but I've been burned by that before. So that's why I try not to go for those long periods of time. I know one time I was recording one episode and in my mind, I was doing great and I was on a roll, and it turns out I was recording the wrong screen. So like none of this stuff that was, the voice was there, but nothing that you saw on the screen, like it was a totally different window. So that was like 6 or 7 minutes that I recorded like that. So I had to redo that. So that was how I learned that lesson, to record in small chunks. But I do try to make it as best as possible. Try to make it like not like seem like a lot of edits that come together. Just because I've seen some other videos people put out and it's like kind of like from section to section, it kind of jumps very much. There's like a graphic that comes in and then they're like, and then over here, to me, that style is like just kind of very distracting because it's like so many things going on all over the place. I like more of a pace, a slow and steady pace, and just kind of consistent, kind of a lot to allow the viewer to take it in and kind of think about it before just like going, rattling off a bunch of things. Because, and if it's too slow for some people, there's the speed increase, right? You can put it on 2x and watch it. But if I go too fast and you try and slow it down, then it sounds all like, you can hear the digitization in it and I sound like a robot or whatever. So yeah. So on average though, average video takes me probably like half a day, I guess, to record and edit and get like scheduled and uploaded everywhere where it needs to be for the release. Yeah. And that's about it. And recording small chunks. That's the tip.
I learned that too in the similar manner. Like the whole episode actually was not recorded at all. Spoke to myself. Yeah. And then I re-recorded that, but it was already a frustration in my voice. I was frustrated because I lost like an hour or something. So it's the best. And we did the similar mistake here in the podcast, like
Oh, really?
second episode.
Yeah.
On the first episode, even the first episode was just not recorded, so we talked like for an hour with Federico, with each other, and we was like, oh, it was great, it was amazing first episode. We had so great time, and then we realized that nothing was recorded because we didn't hit.
Oh yeah, that happens. Oh, I need to plug my computer in. The other thing I'll say before I do that is I do try to when I record a section, when I come back to the next one, I try to like get my body in the same position as like where the last clip's leaving off. So it's not just like all of a sudden, I left off here and I come back on the screen and I got a coffee cup in my hand drinking or something, I try to go for continuity so that even though it is like several edits put together, it doesn't seem like it, kind of like you were saying.
Is everything okay? You got muted now?
Yeah, I was trying to plug my charger in, but it's not charging the computer for some reason. So I might have to address that. I have some battery left, but I might have to address that in a second.
Okay. So let's jump before it will be shut off. Let's jump into the newsletter part. And you're saying you're doing the newsletter with Andrew together, and you pull it every week. You maintain a full-time job, right? With the recording as well. And this is somewhat a lot. One could say it's a lot. Do you have any hacks or any maybe tips for the efficient newsletter creation to aggregate some content from YouTube, from Twitter, and the web that you are doing exactly like in the newsletter?
Sure.
I don't have any kind of sponsorship for this episode, so feel free to just name brands if you are using.
Oh yeah.
No worries about that.
Yeah. No. So there's no brands being used other than the programs that are used to actually build the newsletter, which we were using a Review, which is now shut down. So we've just migrated to Beehive. The issue that went out Sunday was the second one that we put out with them. But basically, the way I tried to do it is throughout the week, as I see things, whether it be a blog post somewhere or someone posts something on Twitter or a video on YouTube, because I have a couple channels I subscribe to on there from, like Ruby related programmers. Just throughout the week, as I see stuff come up, I'll typically just grab it right then and drop it into like a draft issue for the newsletter that will be going out later that week. And then at the end of the week, Sunday morning, usually Andrew and I get up, ping each other real quick. Hey, I'm adding my things. Are you going to add yours? So forth and so forth. And then we decide on who's going to schedule it and release it. Yeah. So typically throughout the week, it's being built and things can like swap in and swap out as new things come in that we think are maybe a little more appealing than others. So yeah, that's pretty much the process though right there. Just kind of slowly add to it throughout the week.
Do you have any plans to automate it further? Because I know that you use GitHub discussion threads for some submission. I'm not sure if for all, but at least for some. Do you plan to build some kind of like a tooling for automatically pull the tweets that you bookmark or whatever?
I would say personally for me, I won't speak for Andrew, but for me, I would say no, just because I like to have a real hand in it versus letting like some program we write, build, like pull stuff in. I just feel like it's better curated. It's more hand selected things instead of just like, I don't even know how we do it, but like instead of looking at like posts from Rubyus on Twitter that have certain amounts of views and only selected ones with the highest views, because that may not necessarily be a good indication. Like just because a lot of people viewed it, it might not be all that great. So yeah, so from my side at least, I don't foresee any tooling automation being built out. I'll probably just keep it as I've been doing it and just kind of hand selecting things.
And that's awesome. And I agree with that. Like whatever DHA will post on Twitter will have the most traffic of
right.
them all.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter what he will post. So this is definitely not always the best indication.
Yeah.
So totally agree with that. So thank you for this.
Absolutely. I'm going to have to plug my computer in now because it's going down quick now. 1 second. I'm sorry.
I have muted you out.
Gotcha. I see it. Yeah, it was the other end. The power brick wasn't plugged in all the way. It was like half plugged in.
Okay. So let's jump into the next question. I'm glad that you sorted it out. We don't need to be hurry anymore.
Yeah. We're good.
The next question I have for you is that since you started publishing newsletter and screencasts, do you have immediate, maybe did those activities somehow affected your career positively? Do you have any kind of benefits as a developer from those extra activities? Because this is additional effort. A lot of people would just like to focus on their developer careers. And this content creation stuff is time consuming, but this is just a different path of doing things. And would like to get your thoughts on like putting aside the fact that you like doing it. Just from pragmatic point of view about the benefits you get for your career, would you throw it away or would you recommend doing that more for more people?
I think I would recommend doing it more for folks because I definitely think it's allowed my name to circulate around more. If I wasn't doing the newsletter, I don't know that would be so true. Now that I'm with Chris and doing screencasts, I guess like that balance is out there. If I was to drop doing the newsletter, the screencast would kind of keep my name circulating around as well. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely think if you're interested in doing that sort of stuff, put content out, the more stuff that we have, the better. And no matter how small or big it is either, like you mentioned earlier on, people not putting things out because they think it might be like small and silly little things. Personally, I don't think that matters at all. I think that's great. It shows people where you are and then they can see where you've gone in a certain amount of time if you keep it up, right? But yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's just another way to help get involved with the community and get your name out there and start making friends in the community. So,
yeah, totally agree. And it's nice to keep in mind statistics, like more than half of Ruby, like all kinds of developers, but let's stick with Ruby. That way more than half of Ruby developers are very much junior developers, people that are barely starting with their careers. And most of them will not keep up, will not stick with it, but maybe they will realize that it's not for them or will shift away to other technologies to try out other things instead of sticking with the single stack to improve their skills. So just after a year of career, you are already like you are in front of like half of developers in the world in the ecosystem. And just starting blogging at that point, it means that half of developers out there can benefit from your work and your skills and your insight. And this is always useful for me, for sure, to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And also too, on that point, like you said, if you stick with it for any, pretty significant chunk of time, you're already in a smaller pool. You're in a pool of juniors, right? Pretty big, but if you stick with it, that pool gets smaller and smaller because people drop off. But if you're blogging and things like that, or even making videos, that's stuff you can, share with a future employer that you've been doing. Like, look at what I've been doing. Here's what I've been doing as part of my journey to grow and become, a Ruby engineer. Now, of course, like some projects, you're going to need some actual coding projects, maybe even some open source contributions if you can. But all of that stuff, to me, I think at least builds up and makes you more of like the ideal candidate that someone will want to hire.
Thanks. So we have the benefits covered. We have the motivations covered. Let's jump into the more like a dark side of content creation. I mean, what obstacles you needed to face and overcome to make these projects happen, especially because you were starting early, quickly. And I can imagine that you had some psychological barriers to put content out there, but maybe you also had like no connections and you did not know some people that you reach out to figure out how do things well and things like that. So there are a lot of potential like block preventing people publishing content on the web, and just wanted to get your insight and your experience, what you faced.
Yeah. So the newsletters, there's no real dark sides there, at least for me. That one's it's easy to put that one out, right? Because I don't have to like show my face on it or anything like that, or talk about programming. So the newsletter, that one you can kind of hide behind and it's okay. Screencasts, that was the big one, especially doing it for Chris, because until I joined GoRails, I had never recorded a screencast before. So then, like when I was actually going to do the first one, I was terrified because, first of all, it's my first time speaking to the world out there, like on a video, showing me actually programming on the video too. Now I didn't have myself on the first couple of videos. I chose to stay off the camera and just talk. But the big blocker I had is like, Chris is letting me produce this video and put it out on GoRails to his audience that he's built up, over 8, 9, 10 years, whatever it's been. And now these people are going to get something from me. They don't know who I am. I have to live up to like the quality expectation that Chris has set. I've only been programming a few years. Like, what do I have to offer anybody? I definitely had those thoughts. And I still have them sometimes too. Sometimes I'm like, even I'll be done with the screencast and I'm like, I don't want to put this out there. I don't want to publish it. This is not going to be a good one. So it's something I still deal with week to week. But I think Chris on his Twitter bio has a great quote, and I have a similar one, but I'll share his. His is like, do the things that scare you. So I try to keep that in mind, that like, if I just keep doing these things that scare me, eventually, the effect that those have on my, mental and awareness, like it's going to get smaller, hopefully, at least. We'll see. But yeah, that's definitely, that's been the big one for sure, is just trying to live up to the quality and expectations that people have come to, know from Chris.
I can feel it and understand it. However, I have a feeling that in terms of GoRails, yes, Chris has been building the audience for 10 years. But over those 10 years, the audience changed. I mean, new people get in and old people get out, because when I have noticed that developers, when they get to some level of advancement, they do not like learning from videos anymore. And they are more effective, at least not to that extent. And they are much more effective just by reading the documentation and code. And this is why, how they learn, or they buy like condensed, structured courses. And this is where this audience shifts into. And those places are replaced by young people. So from this point of view, I could imagine, I'm not sure if this is the case, but it could happen that Chris, as a very much advanced developer, will be a little bit out of connection, like not so much connected to the audience he produces content into. And this is why I love, for example, this initiative, Ruby for All, which is the podcast given by Julie and Andrew. Yeah.
Andrew, yep.
Andrew as well, where there are a clash of heads, a clash of experience, where there is a senior and junior, and you have way more insights into how junior developers think and what needs they have. So I feel like introducing you into the podcasting in GoRails is very needed and appreciated thing. So I would rather support you on continuing that.
Right on. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's, I mean, you're probably right on it, right on the money with that. I've definitely noticed some newer folks coming into like the GoRails Discord and stuff. So I would have to imagine they're watching those videos too. And I try to stick to mostly like beginner-ish content for like Rails and Ruby, although I dabble a little bit into some more, intermediate and advanced things. I try to be conscious of the fact that like, even if I go into those more intermediate or advanced things, that this may be a junior who's watching this. So I try to like step up and explain all of the pieces that are building up to the more intricate topic stuff. But yeah, so you're probably right though. There's probably a lot of people appreciative, I guess, of someone like myself coming in and sharing those things over on Go.
Okay. Because that you would like to add on this part?
Just that I think those dark days are going to happen, and you're just going to push through it to the best you can. and it will get easier over time, but I don't think it'll ever fully go away. And that's okay. I don't think anyone's going to judge you as you might think in your.
Definitely. It never happened to me, at least. And I'm publishing content for a few years already.
Mm-hmm.
So usually there is a lot of and constructive feedback or no feedback at all. Like I struggle with having no feedback or too little feedback. And I wish like more people would comment and say me what I could improve because I need to figure out this stuff on my own very often.
Yeah. No feedback is definitely terrifying too. Cause it's like, well, what did anyone think about that?
I recently I sent, because we are upgrading Hanami in our company, and there was a topic like people from other team that we don't collaborate directly very often asked a question about some topic, and I sent a link to one of my videos about it and sent it as some ideas that I already explored, and maybe that will bring some insight. And the feedback from them was the response like we watched all your videos already. So, and I was like, what? Like people are watching my videos, but no one ever said a word about that. And I was completely in the understanding that no one really needs this in the team, right?
Yeah. That's the hard thing about no feedback. Even just a thumbs up on the video is good, Oh, one thing I was going to say about getting over that fear and putting out the content is that someone may see that and then take it to the next level. Great example was the video that you put out not too long ago, kind of based off the one that I did with the like making command line utilities in Ruby. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I do remember.
Yeah. So like now there's like two whole levels of that concept, right? You have like my more junior side of things, like showing like initial how to get something built. And then you took it to a whole next level in yours. But that's great though, if that kind of thing interests you, now you've got two amazing sources to go get started doing your own things, which I think is great. So creating content,
Yeah, thanks for this inspiration. One of my biggest struggles is coming out with ideas for new episodes. I tried to schedule it weekly, but just not yet. I can organize time myself enough to do it, but struggling with new ideas that are worthy to spend time and prepare videos for is definitely a thing. And when I watched your video, it hit me like, wow, that is amazing intro. Let's bring the next level because it's super interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you for doing that. That video is great. And anybody listening right now that hasn't seen that video, you should go watch it.
Both will be in the show notes, so no worries about that. So we already talked about the time that it takes to produce videos or produce content or newsletter. And this is that you are spending some work time to produce videos, right? Mm-hmm. So it does not a lot of your free time. But even with this, like with the research and with the, newsletter curation, you probably work a little bit more than the average person in terms of the full-time engagement. And you also are a skateboarder, I remember. So I'm wondering, how do you manage your time to not go crazy, to have this kind of a balance with your activities? You also mentioned that you are trying to get to sleep around 10 p.m., which is unreachable for me. So totally would like to know, how do you do it?
Yeah. So I don't always get it right. And some weeks are definitely seem more chaotic than others. But what I try to do, like we talked about the newsletter, I try to add throughout the week to the issue that's going to be released at the end of the week, so that at the end of the week, come Sunday, I'm not scrambling to find things. I'd be lying if I said that never happens, because there's definitely times where like it's Saturday or Sunday and I'm scrambling to find things to put in there. But I try to pick like one a day up and add it to the newsletter. As far as recording the screencasts, Chris and I have kind of both agreed that Mondays for us are screencast days. So those are the days that we are allowed to focus just on that and getting screencasts recorded, which helps. So we lose a little bit of work time in other areas, but at the same time, if we're both recording videos on Mondays, we build up a catalog, right? So like, for example, last October or September, I think it was last October, we had like 10 videos or more recorded and sitting in the backlog scheduled to be released. So when Chris and his wife had the baby, we didn't have to worry about it. We had enough content saved up that he could not do it for a while. I could record here and there and it would be okay. So that's pretty much how we try to do it. As far as scheduling my day, I have a planner. I don't have it over here. It's over on my coffee table, but it's a habit tracker. I believe it's made by a company called Code and Quill. And I believe the name of the planner is called the Habit Tracker. I think that's what it's called. But basically, it's a 3-month planner. It has like a month section in the front and then like a week by week section in the middle. And then in the back is like day by day. And so the day by day breakdown, it starts at 6 a.m. and ends at 10. So that's why I'm trying to get to bed at 10 now and wake up at 6, because I'm trying to align myself with that calendar or that time block. So I'll typically like write out all of my tasks that I need to do that day. There's a separate column on there where you can put all your tasks. And then I'll fill them in like in the time slot. Like I'm going to do this here, and kind of block out. I think I'll need 2 hours for this, maybe an hour for this, that sort of thing. So that's how I try to not go crazy. I try to have it scheduled on paper because I feel like if you write things down, you're more likely to do them. And, if something runs a little bit short, or, like I've had 2 hours budgeted, but it only took me an hour, great, I get an hour back. I try not to not necessarily fill that hour that I got back with anything. Maybe that's like time where I'm like, have I eaten breakfast yet? No, I should eat breakfast, or let me go outside for a second. So yeah, so that's typically how I try and do it. And then on the weekends is where I try to make sure to get out and go skateboard. So I'm doing some more physical activity and just being outside more. But I've found that like if I plan out my days during the week like that, I'm more likely to have that time on the weekend to go skate and do other things and not feel like pressure, like I got the newsletter or something else. So
okay, awesome, thanks. And the next plans, do you have any like planning ahead for a year or for your career, for your projects? And do you have some secret insights for your next activities?
Ooh, this is a good question. So let's talk about, I guess, like personal goals first. Yeah, I definitely have like personal goals that I planned out over the next like year. I try not to go too far ahead with that, but like I know where I want to be come this same time next year. It's still at GoRails. I don't plan on going anywhere. I still would like to be at GoRails. So that's like personal stuff. It's just more of like, I guess just like knowledge wise or like what level wise where I want to be in my like programming knowledge. So that's personal stuff. Work things. We do have something new that we're working on for GoRails right now. Pretty close to being, how can I put this? I'm trying to think how I can put this without giving too much. As far as the interactivity of you, say, as a user of GoRails, if you were to go to it and like navigate around through it, it would work. What we need to do now on our ends is this is going to give it away when I say this, we need to film the video content for that still. So it's about, in the grand scheme of things, that feature's halfway done. We're hoping, I think we were hoping to, at the end of this month, at the end of January, to have like started on the video recordings for that. But we have not yet. So February is probably going to be the time where we sit down and record all these videos and hopefully launch that by March or even like mid-February. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so that's like our big thing that we're planning for this year for GoRails is launching of that new feature.
Awesome. Thanks for this.
Yeah.
So we are going slowly coming to the end of the show. I have just one nice quick question for you. Would you like to share any of the learning resources that you have learned so far recently? It can be a book, a course, anything that you would recommend to our audience. It can be for technical related stuff, also maybe content creation, maybe running side business or whatever.
Let's see. So, well, technology wise, so we use ScreenFlow for recording the videos. It's been really easy to pick up and use that and works very smoothly. So that would be my like content production recommendation would be ScreenFlow. Obviously, you can use other things, but I've just found ScreenFlow to be really, really nice interface and works really well. As far as education stuff, I mean, I have a whole rack of books over here. Now, I have not read all these, but I have quite a bunch of them. I'll give 2 recommendations out of 2 of these I read recently. Now, most of these are going to be old, but the first one is Ruby Best Practices by Gregory Brown. Now, Gregory Brown was the original author of Prawn, the Prawn Gem, PDF Gem. This book is exceptional. I definitely recommend that one. You'll learn a lot there. This other one now, this might seem like a boring title, but this book was also, I thought, like amazing. Text processing with this book, it might sound like when you read that, it might sound like you just like G-subbing strings all over the place, right? But it's a lot more in depth than that. I mean, it goes through like taking input from various sources, like whether it be a file or just some input on standard in, things like that. He also talks, one of the big takeaways I had from this book was reading files as streams. So instead of saying like file.read and reading a whole string into memory, only to then like iterate over that, or better yet, like file.read lines, right? And read a file in as an array of strings, only to then like loop over that array and like look for certain lines. Instead of putting that big array into memory, you can just, because the file class has like enumerable, the module, like, included in it. So you can just directly do like file dot each, and then whatever, and then just like go over the lines right then. You don't have to read it all into memory. So yeah, so that was good. The tons of good tips in that book though, and the other one as well. So those are my two plus recommends.
I will definitely grab the second one because in Ascenda, in the reporting department that I'm working in, we work with files a lot. With CSV dumps, with a lot of file-based communication is there. And even recently, when I started automating some stuff related to Hanami Master, where I'm working with static site generator and static markdown files, and then I started to write some Ruby commands to process content for me.
Oh yeah,
easier, and like remove the short marks and fix images or fix the links out there. So there's a lot of automation that can be made, and I will definitely take a look into this book. So thank you very much for this recommendation.
Yeah, and you can find both of these books for about $4 if you shop around on the used books. But yeah, text processing with Ruby, that's going to be a great one for you. He talks about CSV in there a bunch, and then also, if you have any interest in like building parsers, he does some of that in here too.
I will read it for sure.
Cool.
Thanks. So would you like to say some thanks for anyone? This is like an advertisement block or whatever.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on the show. I'm greatly appreciative of it. Let's see. Advertisements, I guess, like where people can reach out to me, that kind of thing.
Oh, this would be the next question, like how people can reach out to you. This is the next question, but you can already include it if you want. It was more like if you want to say some, like, birthday wishes or advertise,
sure.
like if you are like super glad for anyone that helped you to be where you are right now. It's just this kind of block.
Yeah. I've never had that chance to really say that. So I'll take this time to do it. Yeah. Andrew Mason, for sure. He was probably one of the first, more well-known people in the community that I made contact with. Him, Steve Polito, and Morgan Vanderleest, they 2 folks I worked at my first job with. So Morgan was the engineering manager. Steve was another developer. Steve told me that they were going to be hiring, told me to apply. Morgan took the chance on me. So to both of them, I, I'm supremely thankful and owe a lot to them. And then, of course, Chris as well, taking a chance on me coming to join at GoRails as the first employee. There's more, everyone that's ever had me on their podcast, thank you. Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of folks that I'm super thankful for, which is why I try to always pay it forward by making more content or being willing to hop on calls with folks. So don't hesitate to reach out, which you can do via Twitter. Twitter's probably the best place, or in the GoRails Discord.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much for coming to the show and for this amazing conversation. It was a blast. So thank you very much, and see you in the next time.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.